Hey everybody, this is Perch. Well, it's been an active 24 hours, and I think it's raised some questions about how we view commentary, what personal expression looks like, how ultimately a lot of this stuff works, and how these things happen. So to catch you up on it, the Red Hood, which was I kind of always intended to be a short run series. I don't. I'm sure they said it somewhere, but it was intended to be a limited series by Gretchen Felker Martin, who is a writer from outside comics. Has done a little bit of comics. I think did a Harley Quinn short story once upon a time. I don't know if there's been a lot of work beyond that, but is known for being an award-winning writer outside of comics. At any rate, this writer. Had a history of kind of some troublesome tweets. And when I say troublesome tweets, well, that's what we're going to talk about in this video. What is personal expression, and is there a line, and what does crossing over the line mean? But anyway, historically had a number of tweets kind of celebrating the misfortune. I think is the nicest way to say it of right wing personalities. The writer is a trans writer, and so was very active in trans issues and uh, legislation and other moves that Gretchen perceived as against trans people. Um, she would make comments that kind of celebrating their misfortune, I guess is the best way to put it. I'm putting that way specifically. You may be saying, well, that's a way too nice a way to say it. Well, what brought it into sharp focus were two things, both posted on the same day. The first, which over time is probably the one that ultimately led DC to cancel the book and fire her, but we'll get there. But the first tweet was along the lines of, hey, people were flagging my title, meaning Red Hood #1, for trigger warnings for suicide, but I didn't understand what they were talking about. And then I realized some police shot each other, but I don't see police as human. I'm paraphrasing, but that was the first tweet. And the second, or Bluey, the first on, on Blue Sky. The second tweet was celebrating the murder of Charlie Kirk, who was assassinated at a event. It's not a rally that he does. It's anyway. He shows up, he debates, but anyway, was made some comments around. I hope the bullet's okay, and just kind of laughing at this guy getting shot. The shooting was horrific. In a lot of cases, when you see shooting, and historically, when you see shots, the media wouldn't publish kind of uncensored views of the killing. In this one, because the internet and everything else has a high res view of him getting shot in the neck and blood erupting, and it's horrific and just horrific. But anyway, this event happened. A number of people started messaging me saying, "Did you see this writer for DC?" What's interesting is that I had a leading up to this, literally 2 months ago, more than 2 months ago, talking with some people at DC, some other writers, not just one, but multiple writers, and an editor, one editor, who are basically saying, "Yeah, this person." I wouldn't have picked this person to write here, or we're, trying to get her because she's an award-winning writer, and, we're always trying that kind of stuff. We'll get to that in a minute too. But, yeah, this is probably a mistake. So, they knew about the past. The past includes things like celebrating Hamas, justifying 9/11. I mean, just stuff that I think any normal person will look at and go, yeah, this shouldn't get posted. But anyway, I responded to it, and I did a video commentary on it saying, you're at this point where, regardless of your emotions, DC's now, they have to cancel the book. They have to pull it and not continue. You can't keep publishing this title when you have somebody die horrifically that you can see, that the murder is very public. And we live in a highly, highly polarized position right now. And you've got the writer, the top billed creator on this, celebrating the murder. You just can't continue. You're basically in a position where you cannot continue. Well, DC saw it the same way, and they did cancel the book. They did pull, they're issuing refunds, which means they're not going to ship any additional copies beyond the first issue, and has parted ways with the writer. Supposedly, some of the I don't know, bookstores or publishers, it's fairly early still, are also parting way with Gretchen's other work. Generally speaking, I think the response that many of you wrote on the channel was, "This is you're going to boycott DC. This is offensive. Why it can't be just Gretchen? It has to be other people." And just general outrage. A handful of people up there like, "Oh, but I thought you didn't agree with cancel culture, Perch," and trying to kind of create the hypocrisy. And a couple people going, "Good, I'm going to buy this book, and I'm never going to listen to your channel again, Perch. Please don't." And again, this is the disingenuous nature that you see from everyone, right, right and left leaning, conservative and liberal. Whenever somebody's like very aggressive, like, "Oh, I'm never going to listen to you again." My position, if you've been listening to this channel's been going on for years. You wouldn't wake up yesterday and be like, "I don't agree with this guy's views. I'm never listening again." I don't take wild left and right turns on topics. I'm boringly consistent is the best way to put it. But I guess we'll get one more piece out of this, but generally speaking, to kind of put a point on it, DC was at a position where, when you have somebody who's, representing you, and in this case, the writer was publicly promoting the book, which you want them doing. As a company, you want the writer, pushing the book. You much rather have him, pushing your comic and promoting it rather than talking about Hamas or, some other random thing. You'd love him. You want the person hustling for you. And so, but if they're going to do that, and then in the same kind of timeline, also talk about, boy, cops are people, which again, I suspect that was the more damning tweet in a lot of ways. Charlie Kirk, and you heard my view of, if you listen to the other video, human beings, you don't celebrate their death, even if I completely and absolutely disagree with them on every level. Even if they are diametrically opposed to me on issues, I don't think celebrating someone's death is ethical, moral, or appropriate. It is perfectly fine to say, I disagree with 100% of this person's viewpoint. I disagree with them, but I'm not going to celebrate man or woman or anyone getting shot in the neck. I mean, that is not the appropriate response to disagreeing with somebody. Again, unless you're in war. If that person is running at you with a gun and you shoot them, or a soldier shoots them, you have enemy combatants on the field. It is astounding to me that people do not see the difference, and some people do not, between war and people actively shooting and trying to kill each other, and somebody sitting on a chair and getting shot in the neck. Charlie Kirk was not running around campus with a gun trying to blow away liberals. He was sitting at a chair talking. You may absolutely hate everything that he said. Still, hating what a person says is not equivalent to murder. Any more than, to just complete the circle on this, some of the people, and I did delete those comments, were calling for the writer to be murdered. And that is totally, I find that the writer's comments were wholly inappropriate, absolutely wrong. We don't wish death on them. So I mean, to me, I think that's a really, really obvious line to cross. The fact that it's blurry to some is troubling. At any rate, it gets to so what is cancelable? Because some of you said in the comments, "Hey, what about Mark Wade? He made some comments celebrating Trump getting shot. What about that?" Well, two things. One, he shouldn't be saying that. It's harmful. Comments that are highly polarizing are harmful. People, like, if you have a writer, and again, it doesn't matter which politics you have. If you have a writer for DC who's like, "Ah ha ha, Biden's sick, I hope he dies this time," or "Boy, I hope COVID takes him out," or "Look at Look at that feeble man. He's a vegetable. Like, you don't want your writer saying that. It's just a bad idea for to have somebody representing your company going, "Hey, make sure you check out, Superman #8. It's got a really cool Metallo story." And then the next post for them is like, "Oh, I hope this, I hope this right-leaning governor gets sick and dies." Just from a business perspective, let alone a human perspective, but definitely as a business, you don't want somebody checking out, a solicitation for Superman and then, you know, you seeing somebody go, "Man, if only the shooter had moved 3 inches to the right." I mean, that's not you don't want those things paired together. Um, all that said, and I understand this is the thinnest of lines. What Mark Wade did and what Gretchen did, there is a difference. It's subtle and it's on that same slippery slope. And the answer is don't get on that slope in the first place. And as a company, you have to start buckling down on this. If for no other reason than it's unfair to the creators, it creates a very big double standard when creators are trying to guess exactly how far over the line is this comment going to be. If I say that, well, at least I rest comfortably knowing at some point Trump will die of old age. Like, how does that compare to, boy, I wish that shooter had just aimed a little bit further to the right? Like, there is a difference between those two. One is definitely more violent, more urgent than the other. But you really like why get on that path in the first place? Because for several of you who are listening to this, you're going to put in the comments like there is no difference. That's that I you're welcome to that opinion. I get it. It's just a different form of kind of wishing someone was dead. And then there's a lot of other nuance here. Like, well, this comment was said in a more comedic tone. This one felt a little bit more serious. Um, it's the and man, I don't want to bring this up because it's been done to death. But when Megs did the baseball bat to the teeth post years ago, a long time ago, one of the reasons why Megs got in trouble from DC over that post was it didn't sound funny. It sounded violent. It's kind of like, again, if you said something like, anti-trans people should slip on a banana and, and sprain their back, or anti-trans people should, be punched in the face until their teeth fall out and there's blood dripping down from their chin. Do you see the difference? There is a difference. Both are wishing harm on someone. What one is said in a, jokey way and one is said in a more serious way. Again, you don't want to be in this position at all where you're having to determine like the level of violent rhetoric coming out of somebody. But, that is it. The problem with what Gretchen posted was it was just it was too much too quickly. You had two posts in the same day, one dehumanizing the police force, again, whether you agree with them or not, it's saying that they're not people and kind of making a joke about them committing suicide. It is Suicide Awareness Month in the month of September, for what it's worth. Probably doesn't help. Two, you then have somebody, them making jokes and celebrating and celebrating in a more crass way. It wasn't like, I don't know the joke you would give with the Charlie Kirk situation, but it wasn't a lighthearted joke. It was a very mean-spirited, celebration of the murder. And then behind that, dozens and dozens of other tweets and things on Kiwi Farms and just a history of being this person. This is this person's brand. And for DC, you don't want to jump into bed with that. You don't want to have that be connected to you. But it does keep happening. Why? Well, quite bluntly, because some of the lower level people in the company, some of the editors, wholeheartedly agree. And frankly, if you dug through some of the comments, you would see them making jokes. Now, as a salaried employee versus a contractor, they're a little bit brighter to know if I put this stuff down there, it's attached to my name, this could affect my employment. So you do have people holding back, but you have lower level right? People who very much agree with these statements. and you become desensitized to it. The other problem you have is, look, Rich Johnston from Bleeding Cool reports on the cancellation and writes a long paragraph which manages to completely avoid why it was canceled. Basically just says it was canceled at first issue of published, retailers are refunded, and then gives a statement from DC saying DC, fully supports creators' right to expression, but posts it that can be viewed as promoting hostility and violence or not in line with standards. Never post a tweet, never post anything. Why is that notable from Rich? Because on one level, you look at this and you could go, yeah, if this was Variety or I don't know, maybe it's not the right source, but if this was a mainstream news article, you wouldn't get into all the scummy details of the person's Twitter history. You would keep it high level. But this isn't a actual news source. This is the muckraking Bleeding Cool, where Rich has personally posted dozens of articles about how, Ben Templesmith did a comic book with Warren Ellis who said these 8,000 things and links to everyone else and goes through infinite detail. Or, at Sean Murphy once made this comment about this person, which is clearly accused of grooming. Like, Rich will go to infinite detail on people he disagrees with politically, people that his friends in the industry view as kind of wrong think. He has no problem going into the mud. But on situations like this one, where very clearly you had a writer doing a vigilante book, you have a writer celebrating somebody's murder in real life, and a DC closes a book, it would help the industry. It would help everyone if Rich said, yeah, here's exactly what was said. Here's why it became impossible for the company to continue to employ her. Here's why. But he won't. And when he doesn't, it does give this a pass to keep happening. Basically, DC's in the place where what they want, and it's reasonable for them to want this. They want this whole thing to go away. They want the focus to be on DC All In. They want the KO event to go well. They want the sales of Absolute to keep going. That's what DC wants. And as a business, that's what they should want. That makes sense. What of course it makes sense. But when you basically are known for going into infinite detail on the personal lives and tweet and social media history and everything else on all the people you disagree with, but on this one, where it's a direct correlation of person was fired, book was canceled, DC will take a loss because they've already printed copies and, in some cases, and they've collected money. Now I have to refund it. No, we're not going to give the details on this one. Suddenly Rich becomes, I'm just going to be quiet. Now, maybe by the time I post this video, he will go into depth, but he didn't initially. He buried it in a story of other cancellations. It was just kind of tucked in there. And he did that because he's friends with several of the people involved. Now, being a disingenuous, scumbag of a, he says he's not a reporter, so I guess I won't call him that. And that we agree. But this isn't anything new. But the challenge is it keeps happening for a couple factors. Number one, editors and others agree with this kind of rhetoric. They agree. They may be smart enough not to post it, but they agree. Two, there's tolerance in the industry for this kind of stuff. There's tolerance for the shills and the shenanigans and the manipulation of numbers and all the rest. And so it's not a big deal. And right now, the big hope is it'll be gone, and there will be a couple of useful idiots who'll be running around going like, cancel culture is bad. Yes, cancel culture is bad. It absolutely is bad. This isn't cancel culture. When you're employed somewhere and you whatever, you can have lots of different opinions, and the majority of those opinions are not violent, not in direct opposition to the work you're doing, not directly tied to and harming what you're doing. This Gretchen was not hired to write, a reboot of Amethyst or a backup story in Superman. She's hired to write a gritty black label adults only version of a vigilante who runs around with guns. And then you're going to hire somebody who is celebrating somebody who murdered somebody with a gun. There's a common sense element here that just come on. And I do think there's a one value in this whole situation. Certainly not the murder, but this situation with DC. One valuable thing here is that it is such a easy, clear-cut case of don't do this, dumbass, for editors at DC who greenlit hiring this person, who, for months made excuses. And for what it's worth, I posted, sure enough, there's somebody from DC sending me a mail going, the real problem is when you're calling for this book to be canceled, it hurts comics. You shouldn't say these things out loud, Perch. Can you just not? Well, clearly that same message went to Rich because he didn't. That, why is that the reaction? Now, see, I'm getting more irritated and angry. But why? This is a clear-cut case where you could actually help comics and the industry by saying, hey, look, guys, I understand life is really tough, and I understand some of you, may not be the best at critical thinking and common sense, but look, if we hire you to write a book with a vigilante who shoots people, and then on day of release, you go out there posting that cops aren't people and then celebrating the murder of a public figure, we are going to cancel you and the book. Don't do that, idiot. There needs to be this is an easy one. Only absolute crazy fools are going to stand up there and go, I don't think the writer did anything wrong. What do you mean? No, come on. Why this is such a good view? This doesn't even have to be political. This is the most clear-cut business decision there is. This is just business. Mark Wade's comments, well, I think also terrible, were not as clear-cut as this. I'm sure to several of you who are, who big time supporters of Donald Trump, I'm sure you do see them as the same. But just take it. Give me this one favor. Look at the comments side by side. Understand, I agree with you. Both wrong. Both definitely wrong. One is more severe than the other. If I was the editor, I wouldn't allow either. I would say, look, we can't, guys, I cannot risk from a financial business perspective. I cannot risk people saying something insane while you're simultaneously hyping our company and our books. I can't have those travel right next to each other. That's my point of view. Yes, that limits your creative freedom. Agreed. That's what has to happen in this company for me. Other companies will have different standards. Work for them. But for me, I can't have, whether you're pro-Trump, anti-Trump, pro-Biden, Kamala Harris, whatever you happen to be, I can't have things that are, extreme ramblings next to, I can't have you, by the way, if you want to post yourself in a MAGA hat with a gun and write, come and get it, liberals, or cry your liberal tears. No, nope, can't have that either. Because I can't have that image, that picture, those words next to come pick up Wonder Woman number 8. No. It doesn't work. You got to keep that separation. But anyway, I think the same tone wouldn't be acceptable in my house, but they are different. Subtle, but it's different. And because this one is so obvious, so egregious, I think it should be used as an example of look, guys, this is where it goes too far right here. Here's your case study. But in general, there is more that needs to be done there. I mean, the part that troubles me is, number one, all the comments I got months ago saying, yeah, this person's kind of crazy, but we shouldn't be doing this, but we need to do it. This is a high profile writer. We need to do it. When has that ever worked, by the way? Like, how many high profile writers have we seen in comics, people brought in from outside the industry? How many of them have done bestsellers? At best, they do a middling book that nobody really reads. Like, can we stop trying that experiment too? It doesn't work. But, you know, that's what it is. Sorry this got long. I guess there's a lot of feelings on the topic. We'll see. We'll see. Anyway, thanks for your comments. Thanks for listening. For those of you who came in wishing I was dead because of this event, thanks for nothing.